Hey everybody, JJ here, back again with another Saturday at Zoom Networking. Boy, as always, we just got great speakers on, and today is no exception. The young lady we have on is amazing. She's out of Pace Morby's Sub 2 community, and we have a lot of Pace's folks on because it's just such a great community. Pace Morby, if you don't know him, if you're new to his name, he is the premier genius to creative finance in the real estate industry in America today, which means the world. He's phenomenal. Sub 2 is Pace Morby's educational community for learning about creative finance within real estate. And it is by far unparalleled, the premier real estate education platform in the country, bar none. I don't care who you are. Unfortunately, today we do not have Pace Morby on, but we have one of his amazing young rock stars that is just growing and escalating and becoming a success story because she's a beautiful person. I'd like to introduce my very dear friend, Ingryd Hernandez. Ingryd, how are you, my dear?
I'm doing well, thanks. And by the way, today is Sub 2, so Pace's mentorship's third year anniversary. So it's kind of a special day. I've been in Sub 2 a little over 2 years. I'm a mastermind student. I've been to the mastermind several times and participate. So it's kind of an honor to represent Sub 2 today, just because it's such a special day.
That's fantastic. 3 years. That's great.
Yeah.
And I met you actually at the mastermind in January a few months ago.
Yep.
Great opportunity, great to be around phenomenal people, and of course, Pace Morby, Cody Barton on the Sub 2 team.
Yeah.
Ingryd, for those that don't know you, where in the country are you located?
So I live in Chandler, Arizona. I am an immigrant to this country. I'm originally from Cali, Colombia. I'm married to an amazing Arizona-born man. He's half Mexican, but he's from Globe. And if anybody knows anything about Arizona, we have a lot of transplants. So to find somebody who was born here is kind of unique, at least from his age. And then we have two kiddos. A 16-year-old boy who just got his first job at Raising Cane's. So I went to bed late last night because he was closing, and I was like, my boy's not home yet. And my daughter who's 13 going on 21. So yeah.
Fantastic. Good for you. So what age did you come to the States?
So I was almost 7. So I came at a very young age. But my mom had married my stepfather, who was in the military. So I became an Air Force brat. We lived in Vegas for a little bit and then moved to Italy for 2 years. So for a time, I used to speak Italian. And that was actually technically my second language before I really learned how to speak English, because I was almost kept back in school because I didn't know English as well until I came back to the States at age 10. And then I really was immersed in the language.
Wow, good for you. And then you were raised in the Arizona area.
Yep. It's not born and raised. I've been here since I was 10, but I've been all over the place. So I rival how many times Pace has moved. I finally counted, and I've moved 14 different times.
Wow.
Since I was that age. Yeah.
Let me ask you, where did you do your high school years? Was it in Phoenix or in Arizona?
So I did my freshman year, in Tempe, in a school named McClintock, and then my sophomore to senior year in a different school called Tempe High. I actually met my husband my freshman year at McClintock. I was the first girl to play tackle football at my high school. And then, but I moved to a different school because I was also into club softball, and a lot of my girlfriends were at that other school. And I was like, I had the opportunity to move. So I went there instead.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So now after high school, did you continue playing sports in college?
Yeah, I was offered a softball scholarship to Scottsdale Community College. So I went there. I was also offered a basketball scholarship. So I was, raised an athlete, played a lot of team sports, played golf, volleyball, all kinds of stuff. But I chose not to take the basketball scholarship. I just did softball, and I redshirted my second year and then transferred to a new school called Chandler Gilbert and finished my second year of collegiate softball there.
Now, what did you study while you're going to school?
Well, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So I'm a justice studies major, pre-law, but I also minored in small business management. So when I moved eventually to Arizona State, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in justice studies and a minor in small business management. Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to college, did you have any inkling or any introduction to real estate back then, or is that something that happened before or after you got married?
No, the only introduction I had when I was in school was I actually took a couple of real estate law related classes, and I actually really loved them. They were very unique circumstances. So I knew I had an attraction to real estate without ever having like a real experience with it. I bought my first house at age 23, though. I had no business doing that because one, it was during what we didn't know was going to be a huge recession. But two, it was so far away. I was so in love with the idea of buying a house. Again, my background was we moved a lot. I really wanted to stake my own place, right? Like, hey, here's where I want to live, and really claim myself into Arizona. And unfortunately, it was a bad decision anyway, without the recession stuff, because it was far away. In my young brain, I was like, I'm going to buy this house, and then 5 years later, I'm going to sell it and pay off my student loans and like go travel or whatever. That was what my brain had focused on.
So you said you met your husband in high school.
Yeah.
And you weren't into real estate yet in college. Now, when you got kids now. So the kids came along, you got married. When did the real estate, when did that fall into place for you?
Well, when I bought the house as a young person, I actually tried, I didn't know it was called sub-2. I tried to sub-2 the property from my roommate slash co-owner. She was my friend. We both bought the house together, and we went through the experience that she didn't want to let go. She thought the market would come back. We ended up short selling the house in 2010. My husband, he wasn't my husband yet, but in 2009, he went and bought another property because the houses were extremely on sale, right? This house that was purchased at one point close to $300,000, he was able to buy it for $115,000. So that's just how extreme the prices fell. I ended up short selling my house for over $100,000 below what we bought it. So we bought it at 175 and we sold it for 75.
Wow.
And so that experience taught me a lot about what happens when somebody's going through like a pre-foreclosure scenario. But the process of my husband buying a house was a lot more fun. When I bought a house, it was very contentious. It was extremely competitive. You didn't get to fall in love with any of the houses. Like there was people sleeping in line to get their names in a bid to buy a house. And so you got what you got. And so our circumstance was very similar when we bought our house originally, and myself and my good friend Megan, and we're just like this. I didn't really enjoy it, but when my husband was buying a house, it was a lot more fun. And his cousin Jessica was our agent, and so she, like, when we went through that experience with her, she was such a great, really a great fiduciary to us that I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I think I could do what you're doing. Like, I like the experience I'm having with you a lot more than the agent I had before this. I think I could do that. And so that's when my eyes started opening. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to be doing a side hustle. Like having this W-2 is not going to get me anywhere. And so I originally got my real estate license with a Rich Dad, Poor Dad mentality, thinking I was going to build my wealth like through real estate. And the only real estate experience I had at the moment was having agents. So in my mind, that was the closest connection to get into real estate is go get your license. That's how you get into real estate, and that's where you start. Not knowing then that I really didn't need to go through that process, although I don't regret it.
Now, so you became an agent. That
Mhm.
was your one of your next steps in your process.
Yeah.
Um, how long were you acting as an agent before you decided to become an investor?
So I got my license in June 2013. I don't know if any of you know, but most agents, when they first start, are like at the poverty line or just slightly above it. I think right now in today's numbers, like the average agent makes around 40 or $50,000 a year. So the numbers were worse then. And so then I was an agent as still as a part-time job. And I think the first year I had 4 transactions. They happened really fast actually. And then after that, I built myself to making around 40 to 60 grand pretty consistently. And I was only doing it part-time. So I was like, hey, I think I'm pretty good at this, being that I'm doing it part-time and it's working out. But then I started chasing that. I forgot why I came into getting my real estate license, which was how do I build my wealth? Instead, I was helping and forgive me if this offends anybody. I truly believe Pace Morby's perspective that when you're an agent, you are a service worker. You are not in real estate. You're a more pronounced waitress,
Mhm.
you're helping others. They pick off the menu, you help bring that food to them, but they're really the ones in the diner actually being a patron. And so same thing with real estate. As an agent, they're picking what house they want. I'm showing them what's available, but they're the ones who actually get into real estate by buying a house.
Yeah.
So once um, it was like in 2015 or so, we had bought a house, the house that we talked about in Maricopa. I learned about the capital gains law where if you have a house that's your primary, you don't pay capital gains taxes if you've lived in it with 2 out of the last 5 years. Since we were married, we knew that we can make up to 500,000 and not get taxed in it, right? And if you're single, it's up to 250,000. So we made the strategic decision to rent the house out for 2 years. And then, so that's when I started switching gears again. We sold the house in 2017. In 2017, because we waited longer, we actually made about another $40,000 on it than we would have had we sold it 2 years prior. And then we're like, okay, we have some money in the bank. Let's start thinking like investors. And I had a hard time. I didn't have a community. I knew some investors in my world through my real estate licensing experience, and they made it so difficult to understand. Like, I would say the last 2 or 3 years is extremely unique to this generation, the generation of these newer investors who probably had the same experience I did, which nobody wanted to share the secret sauce to buying real estate, to knowing what all the terms were. I
Yeah.
remember thinking like, look, I was a straight A student. Why is this not making sense to me? Somebody explain to me why I can't understand cap rate. Like what is happening here? And so once that bad experience happened to me and my trying to find investors who spoke my language, who could help me understand what was happening, I kind of set it to the side. I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to do investing. Like it was a downer for me. And then a few years happened. Oh, and another thing happened. Like I know we had money in the bank account, and I had spoken to at least 2 or 3 hard money lenders, and all of them told me we didn't have enough money to flip, even though it was like $40,000 or $50,000. So I didn't understand. I was like, I don't get it. I know other people who don't have this much money and get into this game. Like, is it me? Is it because no disrespect, I'm a woman and the lenders I was talking to were men. I was like, maybe they're, I don't know. What am I not saying that like would help them help me, right? And so once the pandemic hit, which I know was until 2020, I just focused on continuing my W-2 and being a real estate agent. I got to started making closer to $60,000-$70,000 a month as a part-time agent. But my husband didn't want to stay with his W-2 anymore. And so I gave him my pipeline. Basically, he started running my business. I'd still market for clients and then he would take care of them. So I actually had more bandwidth, even though I would still had my license as a part-time scenario. But when the pandemic hit, I started listening more to Bigger Pockets. I had an experience where I had to lay off somebody who I didn't feel deserved to be laid off. Like the company changed its strategy on how we were going to deal with the decline in the market. And it left a really bad taste in my mouth because it felt extremely heartless in a way where I was like, they could have done it differently. And I was like, I'm the next number. Like I'm just a number to them. So I need to do something differently. I started listening to Bigger Pockets. Some of those stories like seemed amazing. And I was like, wait, I'm missing some of the details. So I went on YouTube University, searching for some of the guests that they had to get some better understanding, which led me to Ken McElroy. And then I said, I'm sure I butchered his last name. He's a big investor here in Arizona. And then it led me to Jerry Norton. And then from Jerry Norton, it led me to Pace Morby. But when Pace Morby spoke, I was like, I understand every word that's coming out of that man's mouth. I don't have to use a decoder, nothing. He knows how to explain things in a way I can understand them. And so I was like, that's my guy. So 2 months after finding him on YouTube, I was like, I'm signing up. And mind you, it was over $8,000 at the time. I don't know what it is now. And I was like, if I sign up, how do I know they're not messing with me? I was actually concerned that they were going to like just take my money and run. So I put myself on a payment plan with them because I was like, here now, if you take my money and it's not what I thought it was going to be, I'm just going to stop paying. But no, I'm like, here, take my money. I learned so much in such a short amount of time. That same year, I signed up for the mastermind because I was like, it was such a rocket booster for my understanding, my knowledge. Like I looked at what I was learning and I was like, I've been in real estate for, at the time, it was 8 years and I didn't know anything. Like, that's how I felt learning what I was learning. I was like, I thought I knew real estate. I had no idea what real estate was. So that's how I got into it.
And so you've now come into Sub 2 and you started as a new student. And as you say, you've gone the path from the agent to the real estate investor.
Yeah.
Being a real estate investor, is there a particular, like, we come into Sub 2, we hear about the different avatars, we hear about an acquisitions manager, a dispositions manager, a transaction coordinator, an integrator, a visionary, and how realistically we can't wear all the hats ourselves. In the beginning, were you wearing all the hats, or were you focusing on one thing versus another? How was your path as a new student through Sub 2?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my W-2 career. I'm in data management. I used to be a control and compliance analyst. Like, I have a very analytical perspective. So for me, I like to dissect things, make sure I understand them before I take action. And I understand there's different personality types who will evolve into who they become at a different speed with different perspectives. For me, knowing that I had that kind of background, it took me a lot longer to get my first deal. My goal, again, was to just be a long-term buy and hold investor. My husband, however, really wanted to get into flipping. He really loved, the HGTV shows, he comes from a blue collar background. So flipping makes sense to somebody with that background because it's tangible. You do things with your hands, you clean it up, you make it pretty, and now you have a product that you can sell, and it has that tangibility behind it. So I wasn't necessarily looking to get into flipping, but that's sort of what my mission became. How do I find a flipping scenario? How do I find a buy and hold scenario? But again, when you're in sub two, you also learn that that's also to some extent very self-involved. So part of what I learned to start to not necessarily completely change my frame of mind, because at the end of the day, I'm an investor, but how do I solve problems? And that could be my own sub two student friends, or it could be sellers. And so I felt, as I learned more about sub two, knowing that I've always been a really good student, tests come easy to me, education comes easy to me. When people would ask questions, I could answer their questions right away because I took the time to watch the modules. I took the time to practice underwriting. I took the time to learn the terminology, the understanding of real estate. So I first started providing value back by being a source of answers, like quick answers. The next thing, when I finally felt confident enough, I then started getting on the phone trying to help sellers with their problems. So that's the way I evolved. I never really looked at the avatar part. By the way, the avatar series wasn't even a thing when I first started.
Yeah, nor I. Yeah.
Yeah. that came, I think, about a year later.
Sean Baxter, you are on with Ingryd Hernandez. What's your question?
Hey, Ingrid. Good to see you again. I'm kind of, before the call started, you said, hey, a challenge to JJ is like, hey, since he's so helpful on everything he does, and put it out and be open to say, hey, let's help you get some deals, everything like that. So I'm going to throw something out there to the open, to the world.
Good.
Since you mentioned it. I signed up for sub 2. So right now, what I need to get a deal done to finish paying for my mentorship. So what would be something that I could do to kind of like throw it out there to the world to say, hey, help with this, or what can I do to help somebody else to JV?
So let me make sure I understand, because if you're still paying for your mentorship, I assume then the money component of it is really the part that you're missing the most. Do you have time, and do you feel you have the skill?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the real estate stuff for a while, so I know quite a bit. I mean, I drive 18-wheelers, so I listen to a lot. So then when I'm stopped, I have time to help with whatever I want or whatever I can.
Yeah.
So, but then, yeah, it's just, hey, let's get like a wholesale deal done. It'd be my first wholesale deal because I want to keep everything for myself and not sell anything off.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Chris Cahall just left a chat on the side. He's actually my primary real estate agent, or not real estate, I'm sorry, insurance agent. So he helps concierge moving insurances when you buy a property sub 2. So I highly recommend that guy. But to your question, yes, I also have the perspective of how do I keep everything I deal with? It's one of the things that makes me an investor, in my opinion, versus just a service worker where you're like just being transactional. I feel, and this is my own personal experience, that you need to be able to be consistent in something that brings another person value. So when one part that we didn't get to is, okay, I spent a good 8-9 months in sub 2 before I got my first deal. And I got my first deal by declaring and being accountable that I was going to be spend 3 hours every day to be on the phone calling sellers. And on the 4th day of being that consistent, I got my first deal under contract. So a good reason why we're not getting those first deals is the consistency. Now, mind you, I come from a real estate agent background. So talking on the phone, using levels of persuasion, I'll say, but talking to motivated sellers, this person was on a list that was pre-foreclosure, had liens against the house. Once you stack up those things, right? I have the skills to talk to sellers. I have the right kind of list to call on. Now I need to be consistent. That's the recipe. Consistency, skill set, right motives that you're contacting. Those are what's going to help you create an actual deal. If you're missing one of those things, you're going to struggle and it's going to take longer. So in my opinion, for you, how can you create consistency in your daily life? Call those motivated sellers and find a lead for someone. I had a guy last year, we paid him out $50,000. It was his very first deal. I gave him a list to call on. He consistently called on it. Actually, it was one of the few first sellers he called. And he had a 5-minute conversation, turn out to be a $50,000 check at the end of it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's
all right.
Great.
Thank you.
Cynthia Ware, you are on with Ingryd Hernandez. What's your question?
Hi, Ingram.
Hi.
Your story is awesome. So my question is, I got two questions. I'm not sure, you are in sub 2, and what actually are you? A wholesaler, a buyer, both? You a connector, moving property? What how can I interact with you but not be on target and not off target?
Got it. So I'm a problem solver. Although I do appreciate what Pace is doing with giving everyone sort of like an avatar, because it helps you understand yourself a little bit more. Because I have built on experience now, I don't like labeling myself only one of those things. I'm a problem solver. For example, if you have a problem and you need money, and maybe I do have that money, but maybe I don't, I know people who have money. So I don't like labeling myself, oh, I'm a private money lender, oh, I'm a connector, or I'm a whatever. I'm just a problem solver. So if you have something, you can come to me. And if I don't have your solution, going into my Rolodex, maybe it's not as big as JJ's, I will probably have somebody who can help you. But ideally, like, do I have a buy box? Yes, I have a buy box here in the state of Arizona, primarily. I buy in Vegas, I buy in Texas, in Florida. One thing I did in the bio of my Instagram, I have my link tree. And in my link tree, I give out a free creative finance REI calculator. And in that calculator, I put my buy box. Why do I do that? Because if you come up with a deal and you're like, oh, wait, that matches Ingryd's buy box, you're going to have my contact information. So you can contact me and say, hey, do you want to buy it? And if you've underwritten it correctly, I will probably say yes. Does that help?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
So at the end of the day, we will get your contact information, correct? But that wasn't my next question.
So it's my first name, Ingryd_Hernandez. That should help.
So this is your contact on Instagram.
Yep, that's my
And then if they click the little link tree thing right here, that will then take people into this aspect where they can connect you with you in other ways.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, all kind. And I do try to give out resources, so it doesn't feel like I'm only looking to take. So I have the free REI calculator. I have a free letter of intent template. I also have other resources. So like if you're looking to set up a bank account, but a business bank account, but you don't want to pay fees, I have an affiliation with Relay Financial, which is also another link. So there's all kinds of stuff there.
Fantastic.
Okay. So my last question was, if you had to pinpoint what was the most challenge hurdle you had to jump over in getting to where you're at right now in real estate?
Challenging hurdle to actually get going.
Yeah.
The most challenging hurdle for me was to find the right community, because I feel like I could have started so much sooner had something like Sub2 been available when I was open and ready to start making those kinds of decisions. I will say I'm a lot more financially able to make these kinds of investments. So maybe God didn't have that in my path that soon, because now was a better scenario for me. And I say like now as in the last 2 years. But like, yeah, once that proof of concept though, once I found the right community, educated myself, and then started taking action, that's really when things started changing. I had to do a little asset, like put my assets all together and whatever. I own 5 properties now. So in a matter of 16 months, we own close to $3.8 million worth of real estate. And I was like, holy cow, like I wasn't paying attention to that, right? I was just like, how do I start? How do I get started? And for me, how do you get started? You connect to the right community, give yourself grace and learn. Don't be an asshole. Like, and why I say that is like, some people don't take the time to learn, give yourself a good 2-3 months, and it shouldn't take you longer than that. And then start taking action. If I have one regret, is that I didn't start sooner when I learned enough and started taking action faster. Because I lost a good chunk of a really, really great time in the market had I started 6 months sooner. Again, it took me 8 or 9 months because I should have taken, I know my personality, I needed that time to learn. But I should have given myself a cutoff time to say, okay, on this date, if you can't be consistent about being on the phones or lead generating, this is becoming a hobby and not a business. So if you're somebody if you are not generating leads for your business, you are robbing yourself, your family of the time they deserve from you, because this is strictly a hobby at that point.
Yeah. Is that okay, Cynthia?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great.
We've got Brandon Thomas. You are on with Ingryd Hernandez. What's your question?
Awesome. Hi, Ingryd. It's a pleasure to actually finally talk with you. So I've been listening to you a lot with Pace Morby's podcast. So it's actually a pleasure and an honor. So like Sean was talking about as well, like I'm also a wholesaler or aspiring to be. So I've been talking with a lot of people. You guys mentioned being an avatar. I feel like my avatar right now is direct to seller. And the reason for that is because most of the conversations that I've had, especially in the subject of Sub2, it's a lot easier to convey the concept of Sub2 to a seller as opposed to the agent. An agent seems like it's like almost like talking to a wall. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to understand it. They think it's illegal. And even anytime you try to break it down, you bring up the HUD forms, they don't want to listen to it. And even though they say they present it to their buyer, I don't know if they do or not, but if they do, it seems like they're probably swaying the seller against the option. So my question to you is, how do you overcome that? How do you present subject to a real estate agent?
That's such a fantastic topic for me, because I do feel there's politics, and I'm going to bring this example just really quick, and then we'll go back. Like politics, they can be very decisive. So if the mindset and the intentions is that I'm about to talk to an agent they never understand, if you're coming into a conversation that way, that energy is going to represent the same way to agents. So you have to be very careful your intentionality before you start those conversations. I literally got off a call right before I jumped on this 101 talking to an agent who said, I will not sit in second position because she owns this property. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. What do I do with just saying that? I'm now on her side. I agree with her. So I'm super agreeable. I totally understand why you would think this is illegal. I get it. I thought so too. So that means I'm on her side. I'm on their side. And then I ended up buying a house like this and realized that I have an amazing insurance agent who said, yeah, this isn't illegal. Here's how we insure your house. And hey, here's how you pay your other bills against it and how you're actually rebuilding the credit of the people going through that circumstance who may need to sell it to you that way. And so I generally try to figure out, how do I get on the agent's team before I contradict anything? Like, I try to win them over knowing that I'm on their side. Whatever it is that they think, that's right. I agree with them, whatever that is. And that's generally how I get through it. But I'm also an agent, and that gives me more credibility from the get-go. Yes, I understand. People are like, you don't need your license. You're going to be a wholesaler, blah, blah, blah. If you know how to leverage what you have going for you and use it to your advantage when you're having those conversations, that's in your best interest. So whenever I'm on the phone, I'm always talking crap about wholesalers. Oh my God, those wholesalers, can you believe it? I mean, they don't even have to be held to any ethical standard. And I'm sorry, but it's what I can do because it's ammo for me as a licensed agent. So yes, I've actually, so the gal I was talking to on the phone, it wasn't a sub 2, it was a Morby method, but I was on her team and I said, yep, totally get it. Cause I buy these houses a little bit more unique. I do sub 2 and I kind of explained that a little bit, just a little touch. And then I said, but it seems like for your house, I'd probably need to go get a loan. And then just like this other house I bought in Phoenix, and I gave her that example, I would just get the down payment back from you and it would sit in second position, but you would get a big old chunk up front from this loan. So I went from somebody saying, I'm not going to sit in second position to, okay, can you send that to me and tell me how that would work? And, now she's on my team. So I told her the numbers still need to work. I have to go figure that out, but I can show you how I can make it work. So I usually feel when people post about agents and them being contentious, we surely don't post as much about how sellers don't like us. And that happens just as much, if not more. So you first have to speak their language, like Sam wrote on there. I love agents too. They'll keep bringing me repeat business. So I love agents. I am an agent. You have to make sure they're on your team, and then you guys can co-conspire once you have somebody on your team on how you're going to solve the seller's problem.
Interesting. Okay. So coming from someone who's not licensed, such as myself, you would just recommend bringing in somebody who actually brings in that credibility, such as another agent into that conversation?
That would be a great idea, but not practical right now for you. I would just say, consider how you're talking to an agent, and are you always trying to educate them first, or are you first trying to win them over and make sure that they see you as an extension of themselves? So for example, if I'm a wholesaler, okay, in this scenario, I'm not licensed and I'm talking to an agent, like, yeah, the other agents I've worked with, when I've helped them solve problems for their sellers, all of a sudden their sellers are bringing them more business because they were able to solve a really tough problem for them in a very tough part of their life, right? If it's a scenario where maybe they can't sell or it's a pre-foreclosure, right? So you just have to make yourself aware whether or not you've put them on your team. And are you making sure when you're explaining it to them that you're making them the hero? What do we love? We love when people stroke our egos. So if you're making the agent the hero of the story of how they're going to help their seller, that's the meat and potatoes of this industry when you're talking to agents. Like they love it. Like, I would love to help you help this seller and make sure that they're aware that you're the one that deserves all this credit, right? I mean, you don't say it that way, but you make them feel that way.
Right. Oh, that's good. I like that. I took notes on that too.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm a closer. So if you have an agent that you maybe just are struggling, it's a good example, a really good lead, and you need that help on helping them explain. Because I've done enough sub 2 deals already with agents, and I've done enough creative deals with agents like Morby Methods that I could help you along. So
Okay, great. I'll definitely be reaching out. Thank you.
yeah.
Norm McCurry. Norm, you are on with Ingryd Hernandez. What's your question?
Ingrid, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And again, my situation is kind of like Brandon's. I'm watched you on different ones, and now I get a chance to meet you, so it's great. My question is, with this, what's going on in the economy today, and in real estate in general, what I do is I'm working agent outreach, and also was planning on doing some flipping. I'm a general contractor, but today it doesn't seem like flipping is probably the best thing to think about. What would you suggest? Just stick with some wholesaling for the time being, or what would you suggest?
What market are you in, Norm?
I'm sorry?
What market are you in?
I've been working Atlanta. I'm in Southern California, but had been working Atlanta. So I have some contacts going on there. And then I've started to try to work closer here, close to home. So Southern California.
Yeah. So I have been working with a performance coach. His name is Marlon Johnson. He's actually another sub 2 student, and he's amazing. I've been working on direct to agent myself and direct to wholesaler because given my time schedule, it just feels like you get more bang for your buck. But I also had a limiting belief that right now is not the time for flipping, because this is how it is. A lot of people are flipping, and it's not a good time for flipping because it's competitive. Now we have less people flipping, and now it's not a good time for flipping because the economy is whatever. So a really great exercise that Marlon and I did this week, because so after I got my first deal was actually a semi-virtual flip. I say semi because I sent my husband and my cousin, who was our partner, out to Vegas to check out the house, make sure we got our estimates right on all that work that the product or the house needed. And at the end of the day, we made $54,000 on that first deal.
Great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was hearing then was, it's too competitive. Too many people are flipping. You'll have a hard time, right? Like there's always something. So a really great exercise that Marlon had me do this week, because I went from flipping, after getting that first deal, we flipped 8 properties, or I'll say not flipped completely, but renovated 8 properties because we did keep a couple of them. I then went and I was like, I can't flip anymore. Like the market's corrected. I can't do this. And by the way, there's wins and there's losses. And I'm not sitting here telling you like life is a peach. I just closed on a property last week that I lost over $50,000 on. But God is good. And I had enough money in the bank where that lesson taught me a lot. So that was just extra education, right? Kind of like JJ talked about all these other mentorships where you're spending 50, 60 grand to get nothing. I can say I spent that much money to get a really good lesson.
Yeah, 50
not to
grand.
do.
Wow.
So I'll just say like it was tough, but now I feel like if I was able to get through that and formulate like where I'm at with money, and the fact that we had enough money that we made from that first year, like again, in 16 months, we renovated 8 houses and kept 5 properties.
Oh, good.
So I had enough money that we were able to take that loss and get a really valuable education from it. And now I know what I'm not going to do when I team up with people who are not in my market. But regardless of that, it's still all BS that you're telling yourself, Norm. You said you're a contractor?
Yes.
You got the goods. You're like even a better position than I am because you know what cost truly is. I'm over here like estimating. You're like, no, girl, here's what it actually is. So you're even in a better position than I am. So one exercise that was extremely helpful was to get a piece of paper out, put pros and cons, like what can I be doing right now? Or why am I not flipping? Or like, why do I like flipping? Put a list of all the pros, put a list of all the cons.
Mhm.
When you're done, that pros list still better be pretty strong.
Yeah.
Then I want you to look at your cons list. And when you look at those cons lists, like the problem solver you are, Norm, you're going to go in there and say, how would I mitigate each one?
Yeah.
Because if you're a problem solver and other people are counting on you to solve their problems as a wholesaler, you should be able to do the same for yourself.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't look at it in turn, like we don't create an exercise around like figuring out what are our fears, right? It's our fears that are stopping us from taking that next step.
Yeah.
But if you do an exercise like this, now it's tangible. Now it's on paper, and now you get to be more objective and less emotional. Now you can say, okay, oh, I could lose money. Well, I could lose money in all kinds of different things too, getting into the wrong mentorship, that sort of stuff, right? Like, hey, so how would I mitigate losing money? Well, I'm Norm. I'm one of the best contractors there ever is. So when I'm going to go do an underwriting, I'm going to underwrite it 3 ways past Saturn, and I'll make sure those numbers look good so I don't lose money, right? So that was a really, really helpful exercise for me, because I realized I was sitting in my emotions and my fear and not really looking at it objectively and saying, oh, of course that's a fear, but how do I mitigate it? So.
Good answer. Good answer. It's kind of like, here you are in Arizona. There's probably, from what I've heard, probably 1 or 2 other people in Arizona. I mean, only like everybody there.
It's one of the most competitive markets.
Exactly. And then so that I go to Atlanta. Well, Pace is in Atlanta. There's a ton of people in Atlanta. So you just got to pick it. So anyway, I appreciate your answer and your honesty, and thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
We're gonna roll around into the breakout rooms, but I think some great value, some great questions asked, and some great answers given. And I really want to thank you for being on today. I'm also looking very forward to following up afterwards with you and getting to know you better as we continue our path. As I talk about all the time, if you guys are listening to the call, you're on YouTube or you're on the call right now live, I say all the time, don't chase the deal, chase the relationship, get to know people. It's a progressive process.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, let's do a deal together. But as you get to know them, you'll get to know them better as time goes on. And that just strengthens your opportunity for potentially doing business together. And as we've gotten to know one another, Ingryd, and I've gotten to know you for just how kind and nice and warm and giving and your love just kind of emanates to you. You're just such an awesome person. And I look forward to continuing to get to know you, continue to develop our friendship, and ideally in the future, working together. So I want to thank you for being here for me personally, and I'm sure everybody on the group.
JJ, before we move on, remember I said I was going to challenge you and we didn't get to that point.
Okay.
What markets are you in, JJ?
I'm in the Cleveland market. I wanted to go to some other markets, but before I start expanding my wings, I've got a good property manager, a good attorney, and a good contractor in Cleveland. And I know there's a gentleman in Sep 2 who has a strong market for him for wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
I plan on following up with him about some opportunities, but of course we can talk about that as well.
Wonderful. Okay.
But I'm looking to expand my Cleveland market.
Cleveland. So single family, multifamily?
Like everybody else, I'm starting out with single family. Multifamily, yeah, I don't want to go in 8 different directions too quickly.
Perfect. Single family. JJ said single family. Okay, so we have 18 people other than me and JJ on this call. Who here got a lot of value from the Facebook 101 to the interview during the call? Write me or do a little reaction as a part of that. Fantastic. I love it. So wouldn't it be amazing that by this time next week, we got JJ a deal in Cleveland? Who's in the Cleveland? Anybody here in the Cleveland market or near it enough? Nobody's in the Cleveland market?
Let me not in the Cleveland market. But I'm
Ohio.
sure you can find people.
If anybody here knows somebody who does anything in Ohio, we got Sam over there in Akron. Please let them know that you're looking for a deal for JJ. Because our goal collectively will be to find strong leads or deals for JJ. Is everybody with me? This man gives so much. He gives so much. I think it's time for us to give back. What do you guys think? Yeah? Awesome sauce. So
awesome sauce. I'm in there.
all right. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, JJ, take it
No,
away.
I think that's great. No, I'm very receptive to that. And I think sometimes the hardest thing we need to do is to open ourselves up for assistance. And no matter when this YouTube video gets posted to YouTube or when people are seeing it live, I am always going to be looking to build that market in Cleveland. So always feel free to reach out to me with any potential leads to see how we can work together if you are indeed watching this on YouTube.
Amazing.
So, and thank you, Ingrid. You're constantly raising my game. You're constantly raising the bar, and that just makes me better. So thank you so much. Again, guys, it's the people you surround yourself with are going to make you better at what you do. So if you look for people of quality and give of yourself, give your friendship, let them see who you are genuinely, they'll be more receptive to helping you. And it's not about being a used car salesman or an ambulance chasing attorney or trying to present yourself to be something you're not, but just being real for who you are. So Ingrid, what I wanted to ask you is, my group's a networking group, and I'm constantly trying to express to people the importance of building relationships, networking, using social media to that point. Whether someone's a new investor who's new to the social media aspect, like maybe new to the Sub2 group, or they're an experienced investor who's now looking to get into utilizing social media to do real estate transactions. For either of them, new or experienced, what is the importance of networking, not just using social media, but networking, or even using a group like mine, joining a networking group? What's the importance of that to build one's business?
Well, what I'll first give you is result. Over 80% of my deals have been a result of networking. Despite having had VAs at one point calling direct to sellers, my number one way of getting deals is others saying, hey, I need help closing this seller. Hey, I need help closing this agent. Hey, I got this really amazing lead under contract. Do you want to take on that fix and flip? And the only way they knew I was actually interested is because I talked to a person. So at the end of the day, if you guys follow Brent Daniels, who's an amazing wholesaler, it's all about TTP, talking to people. And how will you have the biggest reach without having to pay for it? I mean, you guys, I think you all look a little older like me. And so what did we grow up watching? Commercials. Were those commercials free to those businesses? No. Social media right now is free. You talking about yourself and what you're looking for and turning on record. People love video, and they can connect with you in so many different ways. Like I remember one time saying like, I wear a little bit of makeup, but not a lot. Like I don't have any face makeup. I don't have any like nothing. And so I say like, look guys, this is the power of the wrinkle. So use the power of the wrinkle. I see Norm laughing really hard over there. Use the power of the wrinkle because it's real. Like how many people connect more with me because I'm real? And it's like the best stuff out on social media is the unproduced stuff. Yeah. So be the real raw self, because maybe you're not going to attract the Lamborghini super millionaire people having whatever, but that's not your people. Your people are the people who can find some of themselves in you. And you're going to, your vibe attracts your tribe. And those are the people that you're going to connect with. Those are the people you're going to enjoy more anyway. And those are the people who you're going to go do business together. One of the most fun things about this, like I really find true pleasure, are the people I have now around me. And I sit here and I'm like, this is weird that this is life. Like, I love some of those people who are really close to me, like Caroline, Marlon. I see Jacob over there with his scrunchy face. My newer contractor friend, Tony and Nicole, like, they're these people who, like, I love their energy, their faces, their opinions, and I get to do business with them. And it's like, how I thought I was supposed to be miserable in the business piece. And then in my personal time, it was supposed to be fun. But when you can combine the fun in as part of your business too. And Manuel, by the way, I need to call out Manuel because he totally was reposting about telling people to come to this. I really appreciate him. That's what's supposed, like, that is the privilege this business gives us, is that we get to do business with people we actually like.
Mhm.
And that means you got to open your mouth, talk, whether that's through social media video or through just getting on the phone or shaking someone's hand.
Yeah. I think the 80% point about have you got most of your deals from people you've actually networked with. And that's a testimony. That's what it's all about. So if you guys are watching right now, it's about your relationships. It's about networking. And I say all the time, network with intention. It's not about, people say business is all about who you know, what they're wrong. It's about who knows you. You don't market your business, you market yourself. Get out there, be visible. If you're not visible, you're invisible. Opportunity will walk right past you. So network with intention, meet people, and get into the room. Some rooms are free. Some rooms cost you a little. Some rooms cost you a lot. And some rooms are a breakout room. But if you don't get out and interact and meet with the people, you're cutting off your opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you want to connect with Ingryd, she's on Instagram. It's Ingryd_Hernandez at Instagram. If you want to connect with me, it's JJ Azizian actually my new website is jjazizian.com. I'm also jj.azizian on Instagram, but look me up on my website, jjazizian.com. Click the little button that says register now, register for the group. And let's get you on some of these Zoom calls and meeting fantastic people like Ingryd and some of the great guest speakers we have out of many communities such as Pace Morby Sub-2 community. So Ingryd, thank you again so much. And for anyone watching us, look for Ingryd's video coming out soon on the YouTube channel. Please like her video, support it with comments, and let's get that pushed up as far as viewing. And Ingryd, I guess we'll see everybody else coming up on the next call, right? See you guys soon. Thank you.